Hello, and welcome to Shields in Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered. Shields in Pathfinder function a little different than what you may be used to from other D20 fantasy games. As you might expect, Pathfinder shields require an arm to use and grant a circumstance bonus to armor class. But what's different are a couple tweaks to the old formula. First, shields do not always grant their bonus to armor class. Instead, a character must use the Raise a Shield action to gain that benefit. This costs one action and grants the shield's circumstance bonus to armor class until the start of their next turn. If you want to keep this bonus going longer, then you need to keep spending one of your actions every turn. And note that this is a general action, so it is available to everyone. There is no shield proficiency requirement. Anyone can pick up a shield and use the Raise a Shield action to gain its bonus to armor class. The second point we need to discuss is the Shield Block feat. This feat is provided automatically to several martial classes, such as Champions, Druids, Exemplars, and Fighters. War Priest clerics also gain this feat for free, but not other clerics. And as a general feat, anyone of any class can pick up Shield Block as one of their general feat selections, and I would recommend anyone who plans to make using a shield a regular part of their gameplay to do so. If you're willing to invest an action every round to use your shield, you might as well get the most benefit out of doing so. What this feat does is it allows you to spend your reaction each round to mitigate the damage received from a successful enemy attack. This can only be done while you have a shield raised, so you would spend one action on your turn to raise the shield, and then later in the round, during an enemy's turn, if they hit you with an attack that deals physical damage, you can spend your reaction that round to block it. So, since this costs a reaction, you typically will only be able to block one attack per round with your shield, but there is an exception to this that we will talk about a little bit later. And remember that blocking an attack with your shield does not mean that you suffer no damage. It just reduces the amount of damage you receive. Each shield has a listed hardness rating, as well as hit points and break threshold, abbreviated as BT. Hardness is damage reduction. When you block an enemy's attack with your shield, you calculate their damage as normal and then subtract the shield's hardness value from that. And if there is any remaining damage after hardness is removed, that amount of damage is applied to both you and your shield. Remember, this excess damage is not divided between you and the shield. It is applied equally to both you and the shield. For example, let's say Valoros the Fighter is battling a goblin. On his turn, Valoros spends one action to raise his wooden shield. Doing so increases his armor class by 2. Then, on the goblin's turn, it makes an attack roll and scores a hit even with Valoros' buffed up armor class. The goblin rolls damage and gets a total of 5. Valoros' player now decides to spend their reaction on Shield Block, and this is important to remember. You do not have to declare that you are using Shield Block until after the damage has been rolled. Wooden shields have a hardness value of 3, so we would subtract that from the damage of 5, leaving 2 points of damage that would be applied to both Valoros and his shield. So Valoros loses 2 hit points, and his wooden shield is reduced from 12 hit points to 10. If the goblin spent its second action to attack again, Valoros would still have the +2 bonus to armor class, but would not be able to use Shield Block again because doing so costs a reaction, and he has no more reactions to spend this round. We've discussed how shields can be used to mitigate or absorb damage with the Shield Block feat, so now let's look at what happens when your shield takes too much damage and runs out of hit points. As previously mentioned, each shield is listed on the table with a break threshold. When a shield, or really any object, has its hit points lowered to this threshold number, it becomes broken. Broken items no longer function as they are meant to, which means a broken shield no longer grants a bonus to armor class, and in fact cannot even be used with Raise a Shield, nor can it be used to block further damage. It's worth noting that the entry for the broken condition does contain exceptions to this for broken armor, but mechanically speaking, a shield is not armor, and therefore does not interact with this exception. When a shield's hit points are equal to or lower than its broken threshold, it effectively ceases to be a shield. And if a shield or any item has its hit points reduced all the way to 0, it's destroyed. So if a shield is destroyed at 0 hit points and a broken shield can't be used anyway, then why even have a broken condition? Wouldn't it make more sense just to say the shield is destroyed at its broken threshold since it can't be used anymore? Well, the reason for this distinction between broken and destroyed is a broken shield can still be repaired and used again, whereas a destroyed shield is beyond the point of repair. Unsurprisingly, to repair a shield, you use the repair application of the crafting skill. You do not need to be trained in the crafting skill to attempt a repair, but it definitely helps. To use repair, you'll need a repair toolkit and spend 10 minutes of work hammering out dents and mending tears. At the end of this time, you'll roll a crafting skill check versus a DC set by the GM. This is usually a level-based DC per the table on page 53 of the GM Core rulebook, based on the shield's level, not the player's. On a success, the shield regains a number of hit points equal to 5, plus 5 more for each level of proficiency, so if you're not trained at all in crafting, you restore 5 hit points. If you have trained proficiency, you restore 10 hit points, and so on. If this raises the shield's hit points higher than its break threshold, it loses the broken condition and once more functions like a normal shield. On a critical success, you restore double the usual amount. On a normal failure, nothing happens. You spend 10 minutes, but you don't gain any ground and must spend another 10 minutes and try again. And on a critical failure, you mess up so bad that you deal 2d6 damage to the shield. Fortunately, the shield's usual hardness value reduces this damage as normal, but if this damage reduces the shield to 0 hit points, it is destroyed and cannot be repaired again. There are 4 basic types of shields, each with their own features. These are bucklers, wooden shields, steel shields, and tower shields. Wooden and steel shields function as we've already covered, the key difference being steel shields are sturdier and have higher hardness scores and more hit points. Bucklers are lighter shields that are strapped to the arm but do not require a hand to use. Instead, the hand that would normally hold a larger shield can be used to hold any light object that is not a weapon. So a person using a buckler could still use that arm to drink a potion, to use athletic actions like grab and shove, or take other interact actions that don't involve weapons, and they would still be able to use the raise a shield action. Tower shields are very large and function as portable cover. Carrying one imposes a -5 penalty to speed, but the wielder may use the tower shield with the take cover action while their shield is raised to increase their circumstance bonus to armor class from +2 to +4. Essentially, this allows you to use take cover even when you're in an open field with no other viable sources of cover nearby. Those are the standard shield types, but it is worth noting that there are also magical shields with unique properties, as well as runes that can be etched onto shields to enhance them in the same way that runes can enhance armor and weapons. There's currently only one rune that can be placed on shields, and that's the Reinforcing rune. These runes increase the hardness, hit points, and break threshold of any shield they are etched onto, up to a specified maximum. Shields can also be made from precious materials. For example, making a shield out of adamantine increases the base stats of that shield, and it can then be further enhanced by a Reinforcing rune, as long as doing so doesn't increase its hardness and hit points past the maximum limits specified by the rune. And other shields forged from precious materials like cold iron and silver are treated as weapons of that material when the shields are used to bash an enemy. So let's take a moment to go over shield bashing. When making a shield bash attack, the shield is treated as a martial melee weapon per the weapons table on page 278 of Player Core 1. It deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage and belongs to the shield group, meaning if you have access to the critical specialization effect for shields, you can push your target back 5 feet after scoring a critical hit with a shield bash. And this damage can be further increased to d6 by attaching a shield boss and changed to piercing damage with shield spikes. And unlike the shield itself, shield bosses and shield spikes can be enhanced with weapon runes. Shields can also be enhanced by attaching a shield augmentation. You can't use a shield augmentation if you already have a shield boss or shield spikes attached, but if you choose to add an augmentation over one of those, it allows you to add special traits to the shield. You can choose to add one trait being either backswing or forceful, or you can choose 2 of the following: disarm, non-lethal, shove, thrown 10 feet, trip, or versatile slashing. So this can give you a few more options for how to use your shield, but if you really want to cosplay Captain America with it, you might want to invest in the throwing shield adjustment that increases its range to 20 feet, is damaged to a d6, and allows you to remove the shield so it can be thrown with a free action. However, this augmentation also makes the shield lighter, which reduces its hardness rating by 1. Next, let's talk about shield feats. I'm not going to go over all of them, but a few of note include Reactive Shield, which lets you spend your reaction to raise your shield instead of an action. Reflexive Shield lets you use shield block against attacks that call for a reflex save, including those that don't deal physical damage like a fireball spell. Quick Shield Block grants an extra action each turn that can only be used for shield blocks. This allows you to make 2 shield blocks each turn, or make a shield block in the same round as you use Reactive Shield. And Everstand Stance and Everstand Strike require you to be a Knight of Last Roll to gain access, but the stance increases the damage die of the shield by 1 step when using it as a weapon, and also increases its hardness by 2 when using the shield block, provided you are wielding the shield with both of your hands. And Everstand Strike allows you to automatically raise your shield after a successful shield strike. So that's it for today, a few things you should know if you plan to use a shield in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and as always, I want to take a brief moment to thank everyone who supports me in this channel, whether that be by leaving a comment, clicking the like button, buying a super thanks, subscribing to the Patreon, or subscribing to the channel. I greatly appreciate everything you do to support me, and with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming!